I really felt to reach out to you specifically after the Charlie Kirk's passing, and I just wanted to know just your thoughts, your feelings. How did you kind of feel during that time, and just how are you feeling now? And we'll get kind of into the conversation.
That's a good question. I think I probably felt like everybody else did immediately when it took place, was just that disbelief and the shock, wondering how could this be, and then going into the frantic state of what happens next. Is this gonna spark some kind of civil war? What's the
Yeah.
retaliation of the right being? Obviously, being that the right is so armed and capable,
Hmm.
immediately I was thinking, God, this could lead to something very cataclysmic if we're not careful. This could be the extreme side of the pendulum if we're
Yeah.
not careful. And so immediately I began to say, okay, we got to logically process this. Let's not overreact. And then unfortunately, my next process was like, how could this be? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Who is this
Yeah.
guy? And then the curiosity of the rabbit hole really started to open up quite vividly, wondering like, what's the motivation? Like, there's so many, and now I feel like I've landed in this position of just so many questions. I
Yeah.
think just the loss of such a powerful voice. And what's fascinating is the world reacted to this. And
Yeah.
working with Charlie and Turning Point, I would go talk to people on the street regularly. And I
Hmm.
would ask people, do you know who Charlie Kirk is? And often people would say no. And I was always shocked. He had
Yeah.
a massive following, but there were a number of people who had no idea who he was. I was at a friend's party the other night. We are just doing like a harvest party with the kids. And we're sitting around a table and we're talking about Charlie and kind of mourning the loss and processing and discussing all the
Yeah.
theories about what could have happened. And one of the guys at the table, someone I respect, a Christian leader, he chimes in. He says, "Yeah, dude, I had no idea who Charlie was." And
That's, like, shocking, bro. Like, are you a
yeah,
proverbial ostrich with your head in the sand,
totally.
you know?
Yeah, I was,
Yeah,
but then it made so much sense that he didn't, because
yeah,
this individual, as strong as a leader as he is, he's not someone who's engaging in culture. He's not someone that
mm,
recognizes the enemy. He's not someone that wants to do something to combat the current state of affairs in America, but
your
someone
friend
who,
you're speaking of, yeah,
my friend,
yeah,
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 specifically my friend who was sitting at that table, because he's not, he's someone who loves the church, loves the
yeah,
Lord, very engaged in his church, but he's not someone that's engaged in culture. And I think that's where
yeah,
Charlie resides, within that culture, recognizing the war and then trying to
yes,
figure out how do we interact with it.
and
Yeah.
in such a short amount of time, 31 years old, man, I'm gonna be
Mm,
38, like, what an impact this guy had. But for me, Sean, like, his passing meant a lot for me, and I am still trying to wrap my mind around why. I think part of the reason is I saw myself in him. I was a homeschooler, a debater. I was passionate about faith and freedom and politics. But there's something about him that just like, I don't know, it just you could feel the injustice. It felt personal. It felt like someone I knew, um, but I didn't know him, and so many of us didn't know him, and we're just kinda left to speculate, like, what was this guy really like in person? But you're someone who actually did know him. You spent time with him. What was your experience like just kinda being around him? What was he seemed almost, like, really intellectual, but also, like, had a little goofy side, but we're all left to, like, speculate. Like,
mhm.
what was your experience like?
You know, Charlie was a visionary, man. He was on mission, constantly on mission. And even while at Turning Point USA, it never seemed like he really calmed down. He was very
Mm,
active, and I think the purpose and the vision that he lived with is the reason that he left such an impact.
yeah,
And what's also really incredible is there was one time he was supposed to speak at this small church, this local church here in San Diego. Actually, forgive me, his wife was supposed to speak. This is just before
okay.
they had their first kid. We didn't know that she was pregnant. She was supposed to speak, and come to find out she was pregnant, was unable. And last minute, Charlie's like, "Don't even worry about it. You secured Erica. I'll come speak on her behalf." So it's a women's conference. A women's conference Erica's supposed to be speaking at. And Charlie's like, "I'll show up. It's cool." And so he ends up showing up to speak at this small church of like maybe 200 people. So he
Wow.
wasn't so egotistical that he wouldn't jump in, even though he had such fame and success. He
Yeah,
chose to humble himself for things like that. which is really impressive. And it's very difficult too. There's a lot of people who I know who have climbed that social ladder and acquired a very strong following that end up losing sense of humility because
Yeah.
the ego can easily get to your head. But I think Charlie had a good balance. He also had a good team around him. Rob McCoy is a great leader.
Yeah.
Um, he was surrounded by some good guys. Also, some guys that I would also question, but mostly good men. And I think Rob McCoy was at the forefront of that.
Yeah. I love Rob. I remember meeting him at the event you guys had in San Diego.
Yeah.
Um, Seems like a good guy.
Hmm.
So like at the fallout of like his passing, so many people were just left like devastated, but yet there was kind of like this also big rally cry. Like the stadium was full at his memorial. There was millions of people streaming. How do you feel about like this massive response? Was this like anticipated by you, or is this a move of God? Is this just like a social hype moment where it's like here today, gone tomorrow? How do you feel kind of like just about the like social political climate?
Man, that's a fascinating thought. I'm a cynic, or maybe I'm a skeptic, or maybe it's
Mhm.
just there's something in me that I value going against the grain. As a kid,
Yeah.
I always have, maybe. So when I see this, initially I'm concerned, and it comes on the back of probably a year and a half of diving into what does it mean to be a Christian. And you made
Mm.
mention to the event that I had in San Diego where brought a bunch of people to Waterfront Park. And at the time, this is 2022, early January 22, and then October 22. I didn't know what it meant to be a Christian. I thought we were all in the same camp together. I thought the church
Yeah.
was united. We had one Bible and we all read it. We sure had slight differences between how we execute, but now I'm beginning to realize just how divided we are because I've
Mm.
spent so much time trying to bring the church to the table. I had ideas
Yeah.
where in the city that I live in, I wanted to bring all of the churches and all the pastors to one table, physical table, look each other in the
Yes.
eyes and figure out like how do we lead? How do we as a group of believers lead? And that never happened. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
strange. And so I tried in another city and then another city, and it never happened. You couldn't get these Christians to sit at the table together because we're so divided. So whether you're
Yeah.
Lutheran or Presbyterian or Anglican or Pentecostal or Church of Christ or Assemblies of God or Jehovah Witness or Seventh Day
Right.
Adventist, there's constantly a push away from unity. And
Mm.
so to bring it back to your question of when Charlie dies and you see 277,000 people
Yeah.
attend his memorial, I want to celebrate that.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous, to be honest. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I think it's easy now to look back at the massive revivals in American history. The first Great Awakening, the second Great
Yeah.
Awakening, the Billy Graham Crusades, these other big
Stadium
swells of,
events, big moments. Yeah.
and we look back and we're like, wow, that was successful because all of the people that attended. But what we
Mm.
tend to forget is the byproduct of those events. Like, think
Mm.
before the first Great Awakening, there were 11-ish, maybe denominations, right? So
Mhm.
you had like the historic Protestant denominations that existed before the first Great
Yeah.
Awakening, and then after Jonathan Edwards and George Whitefield do their incredible work, then we have like 30 denominations. And then
Yeah.
after the second Great Awakening, we have like 60 denominations with
Mhm.
Finney. And then Finney also introduced some interesting theology, like the theology of like confess with your mouth and believe in your heart. That's scripture, but he's the guy that said, well, all you have to do is do this, and then you're a Christian. He really simplified the onboarding to be a Christian. And I
Mm.
bring this up because here we are at another revival moment. And what's going to happen to Christianity? Will we sever again? Will we split
Mm.
again into more denominations? Or will we begin to bring it back to a form of unity and simplicity where churches and Christians can sit at the table again? Because that's what we need. We need a form of unity, which is
Yeah.
why for myself, I'm starting to go back to more historical Protestant denominations. I'm even looking at Eastern Orthodox, Catholicism, with like a new set of lenses,
Yeah.
recognizing, okay, I think I was really taught to be angry at these people and call Catholics
Right.
and Eastern Orthodox not Christians. But then
Yeah.
when you find out, dude, there are Eastern Orthodox churches that are in the Middle East that have been there for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
It's really humbling.
Yeah.